Okay, so has it started? Yeah. Okay. So good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another Mithi Academy webinar. Today we have with us Manoj Kothari, who is the Chief Design Strategist and Futurist at Turian Labs. Before we get into the design thinking for a better workplace talk, I'd like to give a brief introduction about Mithi Academy. So Mithi Academy is Mithi's CSR initiative to help you with nearly everything you need to excel at work. So we do this through a series of free, high quality exercises and online training sessions, which cover broad ideas related to work and the workplace. So now to see other such sessions that we have conducted in the past, you can visit mithi.com/academy or find them here on our YouTube page. Now, without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Manoj Kothari. Thank you for joining us so much today. Um, you can start with your presentation.
All right. Thank you, Srishti. So thank you for all those who've joined. I can't see how many of you have joined, and I'm sure it's a Friday morning. So, and I guess some people are joining from not from India, so it may not be morning for them. Regardless, it's a working day, and those of you who are joining today, thank you so much for joining this topic and this talk. Design thinking is now doesn't require an introduction. Design thinking by now has become pretty much an established term and being used not just in the corporate parlance or innovation parlance, which is it originally started with, but now reaching up to governance, better city infrastructure, rehabilitation. So issues are far too many, and the design thinking is trying to address all those issues wherever human beings are involved. Wherever human beings are not involved, these are just machines talking to machines. Design thinking is of no use. So those are the limitations. One interesting use is definitely in the parlance of human resources, HR, as we commonly call this. Managing organizations in the times we are living in is something which is of interest to me. And we do practice, you'll see in my presentation, a small presentation I've prepared, which also draws heavily from our own practice. As a design research and strategy company, we've been practicing at Turian Labs. So let me start with that. I'll just share my screen. There are some screens to share. Hope everyone can see the screen. All right. I'll just put it on a presentation mode. So my presentation should last about half an hour or so. And there is a little video towards the end. I'll see how the time goes. And then we can have some question answer. Probably we should be done in 45 minutes, or if the interest lasts, we can go over to 1 hour. So one of the things which is happening right now is that workplace is changing. Of course, it has changed in the last 1 year. You and me can see through that with the existing situation. But workplace has been changing rapidly over the past 1 decade or so, more rapidly than it was. 90% of the data in the world today that we see as of now has been created in less than 2 years. So that's the pace of data accumulation which we all know in terms of the digital era we are passing through, the active IoT devices throwing data on cloud, and more and more surveillance data which is getting collected. I remember speaking in a media CXO seminar, and where people were saying that all these media and entertainment industry are today sitting on a petabytes of data with the real demographics, which serial or which series is being watched for how long, etc., etc., and very little is being used to generate better content or new content. Auto suggestion is just one thing, but I think the data that what is coming out can be used in much more efficacy than what is being used today, and such is the case with healthcare. Look at the other part of the change we are talking of in terms of product life cycle. Whenever earlier Samsung Galaxy used to be launched, the price used to become half. Let's say, just talking of 5 years back, price used to become half over a period of 2.5 years or so. Today, the rate of when the Samsung Galaxy S10 was launched, the price fell down to half, probably nearly within a year. And this is going, you can see the pattern on the left, that this what it is showing is essentially that the product innovation rate or product replacement rate is also going drastically, it's heading north. And look at on the other side, the kind of innovation which has happened in the battery cost. The battery prices have fallen worldwide. We're talking of lithium ion battery, and probably 1/5 in a decade. Uh, Petrol prices have not become 1/5 in a decade. Energy density has gone double. So the kind of things we can do with batteries, and that's why we see the EV revolution has started. So this is some change which we are passing through. Everyone knows about it, but I just put it as a context. These two slides, that the pace of change is something which is now changing the not just the technology which is shifting, but also the way offices look is shifting. And we are seeing right now. I'm sitting at home and doing this webinar as a part of that, and it's a working day. People shift. People is shifting because the entire demographic set is shifting. We know India is a lot of people are young. That we know India has entered a demographic dividend for next 40 years. The working population will be bigger than the non-working population in India, and we know the young part of it, but we don't know that the now onwards till 2030, the 40 plus cohort will be the biggest cohort in India, and the life expectancy is going to be 70 plus, which means that more older people are also going to be active in the official, or let's say, working arena. And that's where the millennials, Gen Z, and the mix of the older people is something interesting mix, more complexities. It's no longer just young, cool, vibrant. Now the vibrant will have a different definition in so to say. So not just the technology is becoming is changing, not just the businesses becoming rapid, but also the demographics is changing, and that is what is changing the entire. There's a great churn which is happening in the entire business domain, and that's where the workplace is changing. Our work is changing. Work habits are changing. So what it does is that in these disruptive times, when things are too rapid, we are told to make rapid decisions because we have to keep the pace with the pace of change. And this pace of change, rapid decisioning, everyone is told to, okay, next moment you need to be clear what you're supposed to do, and that's the corporate call. So what comes out of people's mouths, what I say, is a tip of the iceberg, and all that underlying what I feel, what I think, what I see, what my universe is, what my perception is, takes a backseat. So communication remains lopsided. And unfortunately, 80% of the working day of a work day of today's leaders is spent communicating. Believe it or not, whether you're an engineer or you're a manager or a specialist of a domain, a lot of time is gone in communicating. And this is a McKinsey study which says that 50% of time is spent on meetings. It could be a e-meeting, online meeting, or a physical meeting. So what is this doing? Basically, communication is taking the center stage, and the rapid change is happening. And we are then entering the phase of communication phase lag. What we are trying to say versus what is being perceived, there is a lag, and this lag is leading to fear conditioning. There's a big leap I am taking. Fear conditioning is happening because in the rapid change process, the kind of decision you made or the kind of response you made, if it gets a negative stimulus from the system, oh, you didn't do this right, and this kind of stimulus keeps on adding very rapidly to the human psyche, and we develop a fear conditioning. Fear conditioning is a situation where stimulus, for example, I heard what the boss said and I don't agree with it, but I can't say anything, I'll just do what is told. So now this once or twice these things happen, and this becomes conditions in our mind, and there are no positive stimulus around, then this becomes a part of us. It becomes the culture. And this was an experiment done in psychology called Little Albert experiment, with a small kid, a 9-month-old kid exposed to different stimuli, let's say a rabbit and a monkey and a fire. He doesn't care what's rabbit and what a monkey or a rat is. But as a simultaneous stimulus, there's a negative stimulus of sound. Loud sound was present to the kid. So loud sound is disturbing for a human being. The visual was not. And whenever the loud sound was presented, also the rat was there. So next time the loud sound was removed, just the rat remained, and the child was very, very scared because of the rat, whom he earlier was not. So this kind of conditioning happens because of one negative stimulus, which we were asked to deliver instant judgment, instant decisioning required, and it got a negative feedback, and we carry it far, and we keep on removing the goodness part of it, the more diligent part of it, and we develop a fear conditioning, which leads to risk aversion in the company, leads to status quo. Primarily that I won't take any more new initiative, because whenever I do something, it doesn't go the positive way. Moment this virus enters the corporate world or the workspace, primarily we are heading for a death as a corporate. I mean, there are ample stories in the global domain right now. A story of Kodak innovation, you all can check on internet, how Kodak missed the digital photography moment. And also the death of a vibrant individual, contributing, generative individual. Finally, we just then work 10 to 5 or 10 to 6, earn our salary, and then a lot of frustration. A generative company will not have this. So what can be done? And that's where design thinking offers an answer with a part of it. Of course, in a short session, I won't be covering everything. The empathy culture. Empathy culture is primarily, basically, empathy. I'm sure I'm taking for granted that people who have been, people listening to me right now are familiar with design thinking as a process. And the first part says that develop empathy with the context. Can we develop a culture of empathy within the organization for a very, very happy workplace first? And once it becomes a happy workplace where there are no fears, it also becomes a generative workplace where things next day are better than yesterday. An essential thing for doing that is to suspend the judgment for a while. This is quite anti-current corporate scenario, where one needs to be very clear the next moment. Suspend the judgment for a while, dive deeper to figure out what really lies behind the scene. And let me tell you some stories instead of giving some theory, what I'm mean to say. What does this diving deep means? Since I'm talking from a platform of Turin Labs, and I'm also saying that we are also practicing what we're preaching. One of the assignment with one customer of ours wanted to get a first-hand feel how design thinking can actually deliver in a human situation, like welcoming foreign guests. It was an IT company, and said that the foreign guests arrive in India, and we want to improve their experience on our premise. So what can be done? And we'd say, let's say, looking at the design thinking, let's figure out to start from what happens the first. They say, oh well, we welcome them in an Indian manner, Indian traditional manner. We would welcome them. We'll put a tilak, tika on their forehead. We'll put a turban on them. So our question, my team's question was, okay, do they like it? Well, they like it. Every time they come, we do the same thing. We say, okay, let's go and figure it out. Now, empathic discovery means basically go and speak to such a customer or such a respondent. Luckily, we found a customer who had come from Australia, and we said, okay, so how do you find? He came for the fifth time, by the way, and he was given the same welcome. He said, well, of course, he couldn't be upfront. He said, well, it takes a while to get used to it. And he was trying to restrain his words. And we said, why? I mean, of course. So basically, he's tried to articulate that, when, in a Western culture, people don't come too close to you if they are strangers. While putting a tika, we come too close. We put a hand on the forehead. And he said, why turban on me? Why you guys are not wearing? Why turban on me? Why so special? Somebody said, the people who are wiser in Indian culture are put turban on. So this guy actually exclaimed that, I mean, everyone should be wearing then. Why only me? So the whole point is that these are two different cultures. We are trying to offer our culture while the person is coming from a foreign culture, and maybe just lighting a lamp was good enough. I mean, not be putting a tika, which is probably invading the privacy. So this kind of discovery of empathic discovery that what could be the good solution was in terms of welcoming a guest. It was a small example. Then they went on changing to, I mean, there was more parts to it. For example, giving a gift. And the person said that the best gift I get is taking my pictures with people here in the team. Not those typical elephants which we get. And I said, this guy said that I have 5 elephants or 10 elephants collected from different companies like this. So the whole idea is to discover that what is of real value. Another example, this is a picture of a gentleman who worked with our team earlier. And he was earlier into the web design team, as I used to run a design company. It had a branding company, and this guy used to handle web design, coding. And we realized that he's just failing month after month, not delivering at all, despite our best efforts. So one day we called him and said, wait, why is it not happening despite everything we are doing? Where does your real interest lie? And this guy said that my real interest is actually in doing things with hand. I don't like this techno garble thing, is not for me. So he said, what do you do with hand? What is the hand skill? Have you done some work? And this guy brought some toys he had created with wood. And they were fantastic finish. We were amazed that guy who's never trained in such an art is right now can develop such beautiful stuff. So he had a real finesse. We redeployed his skill. We changed his job profile. We said, you will be our model maker, which is a part which is required in a product design company, to make physical prototype before the product takes shape. We said, we'll train you to be a prototype maker or a model maker. This picture you see is from a set design he did at the FTII while some film shoot was going on. Later on, he quit our company and he joined FTII for a short while to design some film sets. And that's where he was very happy finding a profession where he could deliver from his passion, from his heart. So this was essentially a deep dive call we took, trying to not to assess this profile on the existing deliverables only, which is standard corporate set to be done, but trying to figure out that where his real interests lie. We suspended our judgment and took a deep dive and figured out there's a completely new person to discover within him. And right now he continues to do similar work. He's not shifted the line. So these are the kind of things which have happened over a period. And I can play small video here from some of my teammates. So while I was preparing for this session, and these are all 1 minute long video each, you may see some lag, but I think the audio will be clear. So I gave them a thing that since we've been practicing design thinking and I'm going to deliver a session on design thinking in workplace, what do you think is one thing which you realized in your practice here, which was connected to design thinking, it worked out? So just let's listen to this. I think it'll be also what I'm trying to say about developing a culture of empathy, removing fear from the team, where people can be a generative contributors to the team, and you'll see what I meant.
The kind of how our team is constructed and the way we work is that we're always open to new things happening, right? Any kind of change can happen at any point in time, and we always try to incorporate it. For example, we have to make a certain document called moderator guide, which is a bunch of questions that happen in an interview. So these questions are made from a certain hypothesis or a certain understanding of the topic. But as the study progresses, we get to know new things about it, and which we would like to incorporate in the line of questioning. So we're always nobody ever says that, oh no, we won't do this. They're always ready because we know that it's going to help and evolve the study much better. So I think this is how design thinking just plays a very important role in how we work.
So there was this one thing that had happened with me in one of the projects that I was working on. I was supposed to send them like a document that had all the primary takeaways from the interviews that we had conducted for the day. As soon as I sent the document, somehow it got escalated, and I received a mail that said that the findings that we have had is not aligned with what the client's expectations were from the project. And after reading that mail, I think I almost had a panic attack, and I called up a colleague of mine. So I called up Pritanya and I told her exactly what happened. And there was something about how she phrased and addressed the thing that I was going through that immediately empowered me to address the issue. So while there I was panicked and feeling defeated, and then Pritanya, I guess, immediately was able to empathize with my problem. And she said something that went like this, that, all right, I understand what has happened, and here is what you can do to redeem yourself. So I think that phrasing really uplifted A, my mood, and B, my trust in myself to be able to deal with the situation. And yeah, after that, I did what she recommended, and the thing got resolved.
So this is two things about how when people don't fear things of being reprimanded or being checked on what they are saying, or whether it might be a mistake which will be punished, then things open up. People are able to take charge of themselves, and the work happens to a quality which is which we can all rely on. Another part of the empathy is also part is not just the within the team kind of empathy, but also when how can we think about the other person? It could be an audience, it could be a client, it could be any business deal we are doing, to be empathizing that what will this person do with this information and how will he consume this information. And this colleague of mine, you can see a simple thing which I think is pretty much a practice, but I know that there are a lot of freshers here also might be listening to this, might be useful what Sajid has to say.
The kind of
So there was this one thing that.
So I aspect, how do we leverage empathy as we practice and we preach our clients. So when we are submitting reports to our clients, one thing which we pay attention is that there are multiple stakeholders who are going to see our report. Many of them are not really immersed in the project, or they may not really be interested in the detail. So that's where the executive summary actually plays a critical role. Now, in a cliche term, executive summary is actually to be given with long reports. But in our practice, executive summary forms a critical part of our recommendation reports, which we share with our clients. This allows someone who is not even going to be part of the execution, but want to just get a sense of what's in store for the report. They can glance through it and maybe at a later stage read through the report in it.
So this was just essentially, I'm just skipping one. The idea is that empathy plays a wider role, and once the organization is synced into this broader scenario of design thinking from top to bottom, these small little changes go a long way in generating and creating a fearless culture for or more generative culture, I would say.
So I just wanted to highlight one aspect. How do we?
So basically, how do we start building an empathic culture? This is the last slide, as you can see. Essentially, of course, one has to, the corporate, from top to bottom, an organization must be synced in, must be colored with the essentials of design thinking as a process. And even if we don't take the jargon of design thinking, how can we build an empathic culture? Is essentially by building an atmosphere, building a culture of suspending the judgment. Moment the situation is put forward in front of the team, can the team pause for a while before judging? It could be any business situation. It could be an appraisal. It could be inter-team situation, intra-team situation. Spend time on finding what is the core of the event. What are the core motivations which might be driving this kind of situation. Moment the time is spent, I think we get some realizations, and that's where the phrase called "what do you think" plays very, very important role. Even if the boss or superior is clear about the direction to be taken, he has a mandate from, let's say, management, senior management. The mandate is there to be implemented. Instead of putting it on the table, guys, do this. Now, that's one way. Just taking 5 minutes to say, okay, team, here is something with us. What do you think? Here is a mandate. Now, this can turn the table. People feel participated. People feel owning that bit. Of course, they might have objections. They may have suggestions, which definitely some to and fro of information can happen. But this small act of taking a pause and asking for others' opinion can go a long way in building a very solid team. Thinking of end users' actions, that what will the end user, when I'm sending this mail, what will the end user do with this mail? For example, somebody says, okay, let's say XYZ, Ajay, have you sent the mail? Now the response comes on WhatsApp or email. No. Now, what do I do? What does the person who's asking this question do with this answer? No. It's not a complete thing. Can we complete the loop? The person's response has to be complete in order to, okay, I've not sent the mail, I'll be sending tomorrow, and XYZ action to be taken in case this happens or something like that. That's a more comprehensive action. Simple things like naming a file. Who will use this information? How will this file be used? Accordingly, if the file is named, it goes a long way. These are little micro actions, and they have a macro similar replicas in the macro scenario as well. Thinking of the user action, that what will this do to the end user, can make the entire experience very smooth for the rest of the organization. Thirdly, the fourth point is celebrate the imperfect ideation within. And this is something which design thinking does, is that makes the entire team ready to receive raw ideas or ideas in a raw form, sketched on a paper, just articulated with rough scribbles, or some quirky prototype, a clunky prototype. Doesn't have to be a prim and proper PowerPoint presentation. So these things do is build a culture of, I can go to my boss's table, even though my my head is not completely. I have not wrapped my head around it completely. As the prototype is incomplete, the idea is sketchy, but maybe I can discuss with them. This again demolishes the fear boundaries which are totally built in, and this is possible because those of you who have launched in the design thinking journey, or would have your organizations would have launched into this, would find some resonance with what I'm saying. And also, of course, close the door behind you essentially means that close the communication loops. Things which is said that has to be done, then if it is not done, has to be then accordingly communicated. One can say these are uh, uh, just communication practices, best communication practices. But I think uh, best communication practices thought from the empathy point of view, putting the empathy filter in front and done this way, will have a far-reaching effect in building a happy and a more generative place where the teams collaborate together and discover tomorrow which is better than today. So that's a short presentation I had, and I can take some questions. Of course, I have not elaborated on broader design thinking process and principles, but hopefully it'll be useful as a trigger. Thank you. I can take some questions.
Okay, so we have questions. So I'm just gonna sort through them. So you spoke about the instant response culture, right? Initially. So now the question is, will work from home shift the instant response culture towards doing deeper work? So this whole scenario actually help people take a step back and get into deep work.
My question is yes. To partly the, of course, the work from home situation has some other downsides to it, which we all might see and might be coming up. But in general, our experience now that, as you heard, we have shifted some of our work. We are working, conducting some user research part as what Urin Lab does, some of its work. We are doing it remotely. So we are interacting with the participant, respondent in their home situation. And we realize that people are able to respond much better when they are in comfort of their home and it is remote. There are no fears of being judged by an outsider.
Hmm.
So otherwise would be three people sitting out in front of them and asking them questions, they'll be responding, and somebody will be watching how small is their house or how dirty is the bed sheet, stuff like this. Now, right now, they are in a comfort of home where only limited view is available of 1 foot by 1 foot or something like that. And if I want, so this comfort, home comfort, is probably giving people some reflection time, restful mind, uh, to probably be do better in this. Of course, if somebody is being pushy and being bully on the screen, boss could be bully, or a colleague could be a bully on a screen. That doesn't take away things from it, but to a wee bit more comfort, I would say, wee bit more pause can be taken in this situation. I can shut off the screen. I can't shut off a boss sitting in front of me. Otherwise,
Yeah, so that is an advantage, but another question is that there is a negative impact on team engagement when you're working from home. So it's probably easier when everyone's together to sort of build those relationships with each other. So the work, does it affect the engagement when everyone's working from home and in their own individual zones? So how does that play out in this scenario?
the team dynamics has suffered. I think it'll be very soon. A lot of reports we'll see on this, and I think a lot of large corporates are now thinking in wherever collaborative work is involved. Somewhere, our own company is thinking on this lines that wherever collaborative work is involved, maybe once a while meeting would be good. So seeing people in person can improve the small talk which is necessary to build a team. So
Right.
the as we say, the water cooler talks, and so some joke sharing, which will never happen on screen. So those things are important for our team dynamics, and those cannot be taken away in the current situation. So that will remain. That needs to be done, and that will remain. It's been a big learning for corporates that where is a limit can be pushed to digital versus the physical.
Okay, so there's one more question. Innovation is the lifeblood of the organization and enthusiasm at work. So, are you suggesting that it should be the key outcome we should be driving in an organization?
Sorry, could you just repeat?
Yeah, so it says innovation is the lifeblood of the organization and enthusiasm at work, right? So are you suggesting that it should be the key outcome we should be driving? So I think they're talking about enthusiasm at work. Um,
Innovation is not the key outcome. I would say it's one of the mediums of the organization's existence. So organization has to be sustainable in terms of profits, in terms of taking care of its and sustainable in terms of taking care of the environment both. And innovation is one of the medium like money. So I would say this is the goal to be pursued. At many times, as a consulting company for innovation, our research has thrown a suggestion that please don't innovate, retain things as it is. So, maturity of the innovation process also is to realize what not to change and what to change.
right. Yeah.
In the zeal of changing everything, sometimes we topple the well-running cart also. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. So there's another interesting question actually. So it says onboarding of employees is a challenge in work from home. So how do you solve this problem? So getting people on board to your company during a work from home phase.
yeah, well, I can only share from our experience. Uh, and the great part is that there are no standard formulas. My knowledge is as good as everybody else's, and could be as good as yours as well. So this is a pretty interesting time where you don't have to fall back on any industry standard. Whatever you do is right. So we've done few things. One is that we've started a lot of one-on-one sessions, uh, which is not done just by the HR manager, but it is done by all senior team members. So any new joinee must have one-on-one session remotely with the senior team members. And these one-on-one sessions are actually zero agenda sessions. This is the beauty of it. Zero agenda in terms of it could have a chit chat about the background, it could have a chit chat about the work done by in past by them and by us. So senior people end up showing the work practices or work portfolios rather than discussing about do's and don'ts, which we
Okay.
very lucrative idea. The senior manager should talk about this is how things are done here and this is not how it is done. But we keep that zero agenda session and let the discussion evolve.
Okay.
And that helped us very
Okay. So it's more
well.
of a free-flowing conversation then.
Yes, I think open-ended conversation is a term given. This is also a design thinking method, open-ended conversation. So we deploy that in our induction methods.
Okay. So I think that's the end of the questions. So maybe we can wrap up quickly. Do you have any last comments or last words that you would like to say to our audience?
Suspend the judgment for a while, take a deep dive, and we'll make a generative thing. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
Srishti.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everybody for logging in. You can watch this video later. We'll be sharing it on our YouTube too. So thank you, Manoj. Thank you for this talk. Bye.